And so what I want to talk about today is that your body, your physical body, and every cell in your body is a soundtrack to your mind. Every cell responds to whatever you're thinking like a music soundtrack. It's a vibrational soundtrack to your thinking. So what was the emotional soundtrack to go with my upset? Well, I could hear war songs in the background. I could hear combat getting ready. I could hear the tanks rolling in. That was my body getting ready for the next war. And then there was, it's really kind of funny when you think about it, you know. We live in an 875 square foot condo, and we moved from a 3,000 square foot house. I wonder what happened. Let's see if I can figure this out. We got rid of a third of the things, and the other third of the things we didn't get rid of are in cabinets with drawers that almost close. That's funny. It's absurd. It's worth laughing about. And when I could change the soundtrack into a soundtrack that was a reasonable one, I could live more comfortably with it. I think one of the things that happens when we get upset is we get so upset and feel so unreasonable about being so upset that we tell a reasonable story to match the upset. And after we've told the story a few times, like, well, I had every reason to be upset. I mean, I listened to my story. In fact, it was even worse than that. I've been tamping it down. And we have these epic stories of upset that give permission for the soundtrack to continue. And what we really want to do is to cut that soundtrack off and stop it anytime we possibly can and play a different one. It takes some time to learn how to manage the mind, not to be in states of kindness and love and rage and kindness and love and rage, because the rage doesn't help us. In fact, there's lots of studies to indicate that 10 minutes of rage is worth 10 hours of destruction to the body.
Wow.
And that 10 minutes of love can last you a very long time. How many of you have fallen in love and not needed any more sleep, any more food, couldn't get hurt, didn't get sick, colds didn't happen, and people said, what's going on with you? What do you mean? You have a glow. It's a thought glow. It's a thought glow with a soundtrack. And the soundtrack is, damn, life is good. It's wonderful. They're going to fire you. I know, I don't care. You could die tomorrow. I know, but I'll die happy. It's a whole different soundtrack. So my message today in part is, can we interfere with the soundtrack by paying attention to the emotional state that we're in that we can choose to change? And can we have more fun and laugh at ourselves more often? Because I think until we can laugh at ourselves and how absurd we are in making up these incredible stories about epic events that really aren't, we're going to get stuck. Some of us are walking around with, people don't like me and I don't know why, but I'll find out. And all they have to do is say something, or not say something. I had a member of one of our centers one time, and she stopped coming, and I called. I said, why don't you come to center anymore? She said, because you ignore me. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, twice I walked by you, and you were talking to other people, and you didn't look up at me. I said, good point. Wow. Do you think she was preparing to leave when she came? How many of us are preparing to end a relationship before it starts, just because we want to be on the safe side? Yeah, and unfortunately what happens is we practice our endings to the point where somebody else says, you know, sounds like you're getting ready to leave me. See, there you go. We practice endings because we're afraid and we take ourselves way too seriously. So going to my notes. Yeah. Yesterday, Judith and I went for our 10-mile bike ride. We're now riding 10 miles, 12 miles, whatever we can. And I ride really hard. And I love riding because it makes me feel like I'm around 12 years old. My legs don't know that, but I feel like I'm about 12 years old. And it's dark, and it's cloudy, and it's really going to rain, and I can tell, and it's windy. And I am riding really, really hard, really, really fast, because I will not get rained on. I am going to make sure I do not get wet. I mean, it's important that I don't get wet when I'm out riding. And I won. I was successful. I came home victorious. I didn't get wet. And then what did I do? Take off my clothes and climb in the shower. And I'm in the shower laughing like, can you believe this? You couldn't get wet out there, but you couldn't wait to get home so that you could get in the shower to get wet here. How amazing. The pressure we put on ourselves to avoid this so that we can have it later. I just think we need to laugh a little bit more about ourselves. Google Maps. I love Google Maps. I think what we need is Google Maps for bathrooms. For those of us that are over 60 years old, we need to be able to know where they are on a heartbeat. So, yeah, I put in Google Maps, there'll be a bathroom here, here, and here, because I may need one. We take this whole business of needing bathrooms. Yeah, that's another thing about getting old. You know, you don't want to pass one up. You know, because you might need it later. You know, we don't talk about it. We don't want to admit it, but we're afraid that it's going to happen, and we're going to be in a terrible situation. And this is part of getting old. It's just something to have fun with and explore. I'm thinking about creating a diary of bathrooms. Ones that I have liked, it would go back to, and the ones that I wouldn't. We need to take ourselves less seriously, because that's what's killing us, is how seriously we take ourselves. In some ways, you know, as we get older, and fortunately we're talking to my favorite people who are just a little over 50, you know, and we feel a lot like a used car. You know, how much did you pay for the car? I paid $18,421. Wow. I bring it in. What's it worth? Oh, about $1,000. What? We don't even want it, actually. It's really old. But it works beautifully. Well, it's old. What do you mean it's old? And you bring it home, and on the way home, you're thinking, I guess it's really old. It works really good, but I guess it's not worth much anymore. How many of us have been told that? You know, you're kind of old. Yeah? I know a lot. I've got a lot of miles. I've traveled a lot of mountains. I've done some extraordinary. I know, but you're kind of old. Your trade-in value is about $800. I put new tires on it. Got 2 new shoulders. Got a new knee. Yeah, we call that renovation. Yeah. Restoration. Yeah, you're restoring yourself, but you know you'll still be an antique. We don't talk about it, but we do think about it underneath the surface of it. We think about it. How many of the women in here spend a little bit more time putting makeup on than you did 20 years ago? All right, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I know Judith she puts hers on beautifully, but she's got a beautiful face, so it works. But the bottom line is, why are we doing that? We're doing that because this business of having lots of wrinkles and being old is just not fun. But more important than not fun is a statement to other people that we're not on the same page that they're on, and some of them are the decision makers, so we count ourselves out. I'm saying count yourself in. I'm saying it's important for you to have a laugh about this rather than an upset about this. Because the truth is, if you've been around long enough to become an antique, you have had so many more experiences than all the new ones that are out there that don't know. The other day I was talking to somebody and I said, you know, I miss Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, James Cagney. And the person said to me, what did they play? I said, they were actors. I said, never heard of them. Marilyn Monroe. What was she? She did a calendar, didn't she, or something like that? Yeah. George Gershwin. What does he play? And I suddenly realized I have an entire history that to a generation right now means nothing, doesn't exist. And so on the one hand I can say, oh my God, I have outlived my usefulness, or I can say, I am the historian that's an essential part of our humanity, because I am bringing forward things that have happened and things that are alive still in my heart and in my mind that need to be passed on. See, you're the architects of the future because of the life that you've lived. Or you're simply outdated antiques worth about $800. What will you decide? How will you carry yourself? How will you view yourself in the next step? I worked years ago because I was a therapist for a lot of years, and I worked with Sid Rubin, who was an analyst, psychoanalyst, back when psychoanalysts were kind of the craze. And he had polio. So he was a short Jewish man, walked with a limp, and when he would sit down, he had to move his leg like that, and because he had a brace. And I mean, nobody could be more distorted or disfigured in their general momentum or motion. I could not wait to sit down and listen to this man. because when he spoke, there was just an economy of words and an abundance of truth. And I thought, mastery. And I began to appreciate the mastery of age when I listened to the people who had the ability to have a stage to share what they had experienced and to share that mastery. I've gotten to be the same age and older than the person that I so admired, but haven't come to admire myself that much. Really. Still feeling kind of like a young person in an older body rather than a person who is whatever age I am, having whatever experience I am. So my soundtrack sometimes is a lament. And sometimes it's a joyous song. And sometimes it's a victory march. What will be your soundtrack? Make friends with your body. Really, really important. I would suggest every one of us stand in front of a mirror and say, wow, you have made it this far. Thank God for the extra pounds if there's ever going to be a famine, you're set. You were maybe a little overset, but nevertheless, taking a look at yourself in the mirror and saying, thank you. I cannot believe, or I can't believe because you're here, how much you've gone through to get us this far. And how valuable and wonderful and amazing you are. I was talking to one of our body workers who's present here today, and she reminded me of when I had my knee replaced. And I had a knee replacement some years back, about 10 years ago. And the massage therapist that worked on me after the knee replacement spent all of her time working on the side that had never been injured, but had compensated and learned to adjust to the side that was hurt. I thought the entire body says, let's do whatever we can to manage, help, figure out what we can do to make everything work, without my having told it to do so. This self-learning program, this self-learning system that couldn't wait to try to figure out what to do next for the maximum ability to survive. And my sometimes conversation is, you're just old, forget it. You know, wow, writing myself off when I should be writing myself in. We all have a tendency to do that when something hurts, when something doesn't work. I now have a secondary alert system to my exercise program. It's the pain I feel the next day. But I also notice that I can do more exercise and the pain continues, but the pain isn't as much and the exercise is getting better. And the truth is, most of us are not using a lot of what we used to use like we used to use it, so we're losing it. We're not giving the attention to our body that we need to because we haven't decided that it's as valuable as it once was. It's every bit as valuable. It's every bit worth moving, worth having, worth dancing with. And so my message today is we need to lighten up. I can do that for eating-wise too. We need to lighten up. We need to be able to laugh at ourselves and at how fixated we get on little things. I mean, I watch the Depends commercials on television, and I'm not happy. I don't need them, but I wonder when I will. What day will I wake up and have to go to CVS and say, I need some Depends? Hopefully never. But you know, we see these things on television, and they register at some level, and they don't register in a good way. We need to laugh at that. So my message is you need to laugh more. Hopefully I brought a couple of bits of laughter to you today.
You did.
I'm actually working in my own mind on doing some stand-up. And I want to do some stand-up comedy because I think more than ministry, even laughter is more important.
Yeah.
I really think we need to have a laugh.
Yeah.
And I can do 20 minutes just on hospitals. And what they don't do. Yeah. Come on in, but I don't mean it. Are you insured? Really. Love you. We paid the bill. Yeah. So there's systems out there that look like they're not in favor of us. But the problem is they look like that because we're not often in favor of ourselves. When you bring a favorable self to a situation, you change how favorable the situation is. When I walk into work at the hospital, what I notice there are two groups of people. There are the ones who are lit up with joy and happiness, who smile at everything and can't wait to say hi. And there are the ones who tell me on a daily basis, watch out. They're looking to get rid of all of us. You know. What are you unhappy? They're gonna write me up. For what? I don't know, but they'll write us up for something. And that's the consciousness they walk around with, which makes working at the hospital an illness. They're walking around with a self-imposed disease called "they're going to get me." I have to be one step ahead of them.
Right.
And then there's the ones who walk around with, "Isn't this a good place? There are so many nice people." I walk into the cafeteria of the hospital I work in. 5 people greet me. And the reason they greet me is because I went around to tell each of them what an amazing job they were doing with the food they were preparing. And I did this a year ago. But they can't wait to greet me, give me free coffee, sometimes a piece of pizza, which I don't eat anymore because I'm not eating pizza. It's amazing the response I get from all the lights in the room. And then there are the same other people that, well, he's always happy, he's probably doing drugs. So you get to choose how you're going to be, and that is going to change the fabric of every cell of your body. Your chemistry, your body chemistry, is your soundtrack. And if it's sick, you got bad music. And you need to change the music, change your tune. You've heard that when you were a kid, you better change your tune. Well, you do need to change your tune to a tune that you don't mind humming, that other people are going to want to hum with you. I'm so grateful to have you, my family, here today. I'm so grateful for every one of you, because every one of you is a light, a different light. One of the people that came in today, one of the things I noticed when she came in was how much light she had in her eyes. What's interesting is when I work in the hospital, I see people who have none, whose eyes are very dark. And they're dark because they are ready to leave, and their eyes have already left. You're here. Come back for yourself to keep your lights on and to share your light. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.